All right, kia ora koutou. Second time lucky. We'll get started now. Tuatahi, ka tuku taku nei mihi a kia koutou e kawe ana I te mano o te whenua, ara ko ngai tahu, ko ngai tua huriri, tēnā koutou. O tira kia tātou katoa, te hunga noho, te hunga mātaki, tēnā koutou. Nau mai, hara mai ki tō tātou nei pō whakamarama. Kia ora everybody, my name is Hamuera Kahi. I'm one of the lecturers here at University of Canterbury. You can call me Hamu for short. And welcome to our evening, the Bachelor of Digital Screen Information Evening. Whee! There we go, it's coming. How you guys all doing? How's everyone doing? Good, awesome. We've got some Year 13 students here. Oh yeah, see, that's how we do it, Year 13 students. Have we got some prospective students here who are not in high school at the moment? Yeah, a little bit of the ones, that's cool too. And do we have some family? Do we have some parents? Yeah, that's how are the parents doing? That's what I really want to know. You spent the last 5 years telling your kids to get off a device and they've brought you along to university to tell you that they're going to have a career in gaming. And what's worse is that it might happen. Here we all are. I've got 2 daughters myself, 13 and 15, so I've spent a bit of the week telling them to get off devices. But I can tell you a little bit about what we're up to here at the University of Canterbury. I've just got a few of the housekeeping things to note. We've got toilets down the side. We're going to be here for an hour or two, so if you need to use them, we've got exits at the back. We've got exits at the side. If there's any events, we're Christchurch, we know if there's any shaking, we stop, drop and hold. If we need to leave because of any reason, we'll just hit out those 4 exits. The air stewards make this look a lot easier. Anyhow, and we will meet out in the grass in front of the building. Okay, so in case any of that happens. We do have a big evening planned. We are really trying to focus in on the possibilities. The way that we're doing this evening is that we've got 2 guest speakers who are coming in from industries. Who are going to tell us a little bit about their experiences, what their work looks like. And then we will talk. I've got a bunch of colleagues who are going to talk and share what we are offering here at UC. We expect to get you out of here around about 7:30 or earlier. So you've got time to make the 8 o'clock session of Barbie down Rickerton if you need to. I was thinking, imagine if I just went, and we're watching Barbie now. I shouldn't have said that out loud. In case, if you're not a Barbie fan, Oppenheimer starts today. I hear this is one that you can actually hear. You can hear the sound. If you got that, you're probably in the right place. If you laughed, I can't help you. Anyhow, I'll get out of the way. I'm just going to hand things over to our first guest speaker. Our first speaker is James Tan. James is the director at Digital Confectioners. Digital Confectioners are a local outfit, gaming company. They're responsible for Dread Hunger. Anybody played it? Yeah, some of us know it. It's doing big things around the world. James is proficient with Unreal Engine versions 1 through 5, and it's got 25 years of experience. That's as much of the human LinkedIn lead-in that I can give. Over to James.
All right, good evening everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm going to try not to talk too loudly into the microphone. Everyone all good at the back? Cool, awesome. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about a few things. I just need to pull out my phone so I can turn on the time tracking so I don't get lost. All right. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my pathway and how I got into this industry, and sort of all the way going back to high school, because that's kind of where we're starting from. So during high school, I was doing a lot of sort of modding of existing games and changing how they function, how they work, And I sort of got a really keen interest in game development. And I really loved it. And one of the regrets that I have is when I was about 19 years old or 20 years old at the time, a little company in North Carolina called Epic Games were looking for interns. And I talked to my parents and I said, hey, there's this company in North Carolina in America and they're looking for interns. And I was thinking maybe I could go there and join them. And my parents, being very typical Chinese parents, said, no. And I asked again, I said, why not? And they just said, no. That's the way life is. You don't get to choose. And so you're going to do one of three things. You're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, or you're going to be an accountant, or you can be any of those combined together. And that's your choices, that's it. Nothing else. So I said, okay, well, in this case, I'd like to, I was living in Christchurch at the time, and I said, you know, I'd like to get out a little bit and see something else. So I decided to go down to Dunedin, and I entered into health science, and I got into pharmacy. So I came back and I said, I'm already a failure. I didn't get to become a doctor. And they said, that's okay, if you study long enough, you can get a doctorate, and then you can be a doctor still. And I said, okay, well, I'll see what happens. So I ended up doing pharmacy, came out, graduated, and I said, I don't want to do university anymore. And then my dad said, well, that's a shame. I guess you can't be a doctor now. So, but, you know, hey, you can now do whatever you want, except you can't because now you're going to go get a job. So I said, okay, well, I'll practice as a pharmacist for a little bit. And so as I was practicing, I was still very engaged with game development. I was still doing a lot of the hobby stuff. I was still talking to a lot of different companies. And one of the companies I kept in touch with was Epic Games. And over those years, as I sort of was doing a lot of modding and a lot of building games and making games and so forth, they sort of started saying to me, you know, hey, we've noticed that you're pretty good at writing. And I think all those years in university really helped a lot with that. And they also said, but you're also really good at explaining really technical and complex topics to just, you know, anybody on the street, lay people. And I said, yeah, it's because I was a pharmacist, and I still am a pharmacist, and half of my job is explaining what do medicines do. And that was super, super useful. So they said, you know, would you like to be a technical writer for us? And I said, okay, sounds awesome. So I started contracting for Epic Games while I was still a pharmacist at the time. And they, after doing documentation for a while, they said, you know, you're really, really good at writing, but how are you at talking and engaging with people? And I sort of said to them, well, you know, I'm a pharmacist. I do that all the time. And so they said, well, do you want to become an evangelist for us? And I sort of said to them, well, what's an evangelist? What does an evangelist do? And they said, well, you get to go around and talk about Unreal Engine and teach people what it's about. And I said, cool, sounds great. But, you know, Christchurch is really small. Who wants to learn Unreal Engine here? And I said, oh, no. We're gonna send you places. So the craziest time of my life was in those couple of years where I was an evangelist for Epic Games. And some of the really interesting, sort of insane times, which you can ask me about later, for example, is they wanted me in the UK. So they called me on Monday and they said, hey, we need you to be in the UK. I said, cool, when do you want me there? This Friday. I'm like, you know, today's Monday, right? And they're like, yeah, but we need you there this Friday. So they booked me flights, and after around about 32, 40 hours of flying and layovers and so forth, I landed on the ground. I'm like, all right, I'm here. How long do you need me here? 1 day. And so I gave my talk, did my thing for like 2 hours, and then next day I was back on the plane, flying back to New Zealand. And when I came back, I said, you know, I've spent longer in the air and layovers than I actually in the UK. And they said, you had a fun time, right? I'm like, yeah, I had a fun time. So they did it to me again next year. So, so after a while, as I was traveling around the world teaching people about Unreal Engine and so forth, a couple of these people were from companies, and they sort of said to me, you know a lot about this technology, and are you available to help us build our games? And I said, yeah, absolutely. You know, how do you guys want to get started? And so over time, I became a development contractor for them. I was an engineer, and I was doing a lot of other stuff as well, like art and technical art and so forth. Had a lot of different skills that built up over the many years. And so over time, I stopped being an evangelist for Epic because I said, I've had my first child now. I really can't be flying for 80 hours, every 2 weeks, something crazy like that. So I really got to be home a little bit more often because otherwise my wife will be very upset. So they over the time they found other evangelists and so I carried on doing development contracting for other people. And then over that time, as I built up some cash and hired more people along the way, I started thinking about, well, let's create independent IP. This is really where all the money is, because you make a game, you sell it, and it does really well. As an example, when we released our first game, Depth, back in 2014, it's made something like 17 million, which is not bad. It's pretty good. We were a team of like 7 people or so. So, after taxes, it sucks, but, pre-taxes, the number looks nice, And then for Dread Hunger was another one. It blew up in China, it became massive there. We were like in the top 10 Steam games. You look at top 10 Steam games, and it's like PUBG, Counter-Strike, TF2 or Team Fortress 2, and then you have all the other big games, and then there's Dread Hunger, made by like 9 people. We're like, wow, this is great. So Dread Hunger was our third game. We don't talk about the second game because that flopped, so we don't talk about that one. But the third game was great, and that one made like 50 million. Pre-taxes. So after taxes, not so much, but pre-taxes was good. And here today now, actually, Digital Confection is this company. We actually spend a lot of time doing investments and other stuff. So we've sort of come to that other circle where we're now looking for possibly other studios who are smaller than us or have need some funding or something like that, and we sort of go, do you guys want a little bit of funding? Maybe we could help publish you guys or something like that, and we do a whole range of other investments too. So in short, we're a really small team, industry veteran focus, and we create unique and innovative games. All right, finding your path. So you're young, you're eager to get out in the world, so how do you go about doing this? And these are things that I've learned over time that hopefully you can take away as well. And the reason why I have this slide is because I'm then going to go into like what are the potential careers in the game industry. So over the years, I have found that business is really, really easy actually. And the thing that makes it really hard is people are really difficult. And for those who have done business or are involved in that, you really understand what I'm talking about. Finding clients, finding contracts, that stuff is easy, but convincing them to give you money, that's the hard part. You can tell them you have all the skills and all these things and all the people that you need, and they sort of go, don't know about that. Where is New Zealand even? That's what I get asked all the time whenever I'm in somewhere like the United States, and especially on the East Coast. At least at that time, do you guys have internet? Isn't it just sheep over there? All the common things that always come out. Get really, really, really good at being able to collect information, being able to collect data. Get really, really good at analyzing data, at sort of analyzing information, make an evaluation based on that, and then execute. So for me, Digital Confectioneers was my third business. I had 2 other businesses prior to that. They failed miserably. And they failed miserably because I didn't really do any of these 4 things. So my second business was actually also a software development company, but it was just software, just general software. I know how to make websites, I know how to do C++, I know how to do a whole bunch of stuff, please hire me. And everyone just looks at them and is like, well, you're kind of a jack of all trades doing all kinds of stuff, all kinds of everything. And I didn't collect much data, I didn't collect much information about people and what other businesses were doing, I didn't analyze anything. And because I didn't evaluate anything, I also didn't execute anything really of much either. And really start to know yourself. And this sounds really silly, but it's one of those things of ask yourself some questions such as, which type of person am I? Am I a builder? Do I love to go out and make things? Am I a dreamer? And we might think about, well, what does that mean? Do I dream of ideas? No. What this means is that I'm a guy with lots of ideas, but I'm so risk averse that I am not interested in executing any of those ideas. So lots of ideas, but no execution. And how do you tell whether you're a risk taker or not? Well, if I present you 2 scenarios, which one is more risky? One is to go whitewater rafting, or the other one is to just start a business of some description with nothing, no idea. Which one is more risky? And how you evaluate that is up to you. So whitewater rafting might be risky, running a business might be risky, but it depends on how you plan it. Am I an innovator? What an innovator means to me is, do you come up with interesting and unique ideas, but are also willing to gamble everything to actually execute on those ideas? Or are you a prophet? And what that means is, you are more than happy to tell a bunch of people, stop what you're doing, follow me, and I will guide you to the promised land. And don't worry about anything else because I'll make sure you get there, and you have that conviction in yourself to do it. Or are you a barbarian, which is the type of person that says, follow me or else you will suffer. You'll never have a, this is my dad, right? Be a doctor or else. Be a lawyer or else, you know. And so that's always fun. And finally, it's also a question of what is it that you really want? And when, you know, it's funny when we ask this question, because when we ask people sometimes, they say, what do you mean? And we say, if we put a button in front of you and you press it, what do you want that button to do? And this can be a variety of different things. You maybe want lots of money. Maybe you want to have a rich and fulfilling life. Maybe you want to be able to raise a family. I guess these days, being a millennial, some people might go, well, I at least want to be able to buy a house these days. You know, that seems to be the really hard thing to do now. So thinking about all of these different things will help you in figuring out where do I move, how do I want to move, and where do I want to go. And one of my personal mentors, his name is Jay Wilbur, and this is going way back in the past, but he was one of the original founders of a company called id Software, and he was there when they first built Do. And he I was very fortunate that he was one of my business advisors, really, really early on, business advisor, mentor, and a great friend. And he said, one of the things he said to me is that when you're young, you have a ton of moxie, and you have a ton of confidence, and you're just willing to push and willing to drive and go do everything. But he said, one of the things you got to stop and figure out is where you want your destination to be. Because you can drive and go forward in any direction you want, but you have no idea where you're going. All you're doing is just moving forward, and you will never reach a destination. So you can build the fastest boat in the world, but if you don't know where you're going to go around in circles around the globe. So, game industry makeup. When we tend to think about game industries, we tend to think about a couple of very key select few industries, very few sort of professions, and it's sort of everything else gets a bit lost. But there's actually tons and tons of opportunities here. If I had known this earlier on, maybe I would have done something less risky than to start a business. So there's the art side of things. So, you know, 3D animation, 3D art, and 2D art, illustration work, or animation, in all variety of forms. These ones are pretty obvious because we look at games and we're like, you know, they're a visual art form, so you want to be able to do something there. Then we talk about content. These are things that are a bit more specific to the game, and they can derive from a really kind of interesting places. For example, there are level designers, and if you think about some games that you play, such as if you play Fortnite, or if you play Call of Duty, or you play any of those types of other games, you know, they have level designers. And you might think, well, where do level designers come from? That's not necessarily a course that they teach at schools all the time. But ones that I've talked to have come from being architects before in the past, and they say it's very similar in that we're designing spaces, in this case, designing spaces for humans to live in or to work in or something like that. And in the game, they're talking about designing spaces for people to play in. There are other forms of content. It really depends on the game and the technology that you're shooting for. And then we have economics. So a great thing that has happened in games fairly recently, if any of you participate in Counter-Strike Go's sort of weapon skin culture or content creation, there are a lot of economics behind that as well. There are people actively buying and trading weapon skins that may run for like $400 a skin. And these are not even real things, these are all virtual. One of the funniest stories that Valve ever told me was a story about a young boy, and his parents got mail from Valve, and inside it was a check. And they said to their son, who I think was like 15 or 16 years old, they said, you know, this is a check for like 50 grand. How did you make this money? Like, who's Valve? And he said, well, I make these hats. And they're like, hats? And he's like, yeah, so I make these virtual hats for a game called Team Fortress 2. And they sell them on the marketplace and I get some money from there. And it was all the rage at the time and very, very popular. And his parents were like, okay, well, where are you getting the materials from? Like, I've never seen like bundles of stuff in your room. Like, where are you getting the stuff from? And how did you learn how to make hats? And his son goes, well, they're not real. They're like, they're not even real? Like, what's going on? Yeah, so a good understanding of economics and those kinds of systems are really, really cool because there are actually economy designers for games as well, where what they do is they create things like, okay, this is a skin and it's going to go into this bundle, but we'll anchor this price at, say, $50, and then they set this other skin to be $60, and everyone's like, well, the base skin is $50, so 60, yeah, it's a pretty good deal, pretty good bargain. So there's lots of economic style psychology going on there as well. There's also data. So working with data is really, really big in games, particularly if you play any free-to-play mobile games. If you wonder how they monetize extraordinarily well because there's a ton of data analysts where all they do is study how people play the game, but they also study exactly how they play the game. So they know exactly how long you are looking at a particular screen. They know that this shade of red works really, really well for purchases, or it may be a shade of green. They know how long you're flicking through the storefront. Think about Facebook and all those different kind of tech companies where all they do is just work with your data. And going into ideation, everybody goes, well, there's no such job in the industry as just an ideas person, right? But in a lot of ways, ideation can be concepting, it can be game design, it can be a lot of different things. And sometimes there are companies out there that all they do is just pitch hundreds of projects out there. Think about production in movies. Often it just starts with a script, and these are sometimes people are just writing things and saying, I'd like to make this movie, or I'd like to make this game. Then we head into these other areas of the game industry. You've got management. So the game industry is big. We were working on Fortnite, and that was a team of about 3,500 people. So we were regularly engaging with 3,500 people, and it was chaos. And there was a lot of management layers. There were a lot of producers. There was a lot of production sort of queuing and all these different things. So management of production, management of how games are being made is a huge part of the game industry, especially when we get to bigger and bigger productions. Like I think I just read some news that Grand Theft Auto 6, I heard it's going to cost like $2 billion. So, lots of money involved. Another part of the game industry, because you've got so many people, is the management or how you deal with people. So if you're thinking about careers and things like human resource management or something along those lines, but there's also all these other things as well, like psychology, because one of the downsides with a really popular game like Dread Hunger is that one of our community managers unfortunately got targeted by some trolls online, and it got pretty serious. And one of the things that I have to do is say to that person, I said to the person, I said, do you need a therapist to talk to? And when the therapist understands the gaming landscape and how toxic it can get sometimes, it really helps that person to sort of be able to talk about it with somebody. But there's many other areas in the people side of things with the game industry like that. There's programming, and I think that one's pretty self-explanatory, engineering, programming. Psychology. So I talked a little bit about economics, but there's also the psychology of why people play games. And this could be perceived as perhaps the nasty side of the game industry, but we like making games that kind of get people hooked. And some games go even further by making it addictive, actively making it addictive. And so reading stories from a lot of mobile game developers, they're not the only ones, but typically free-to-play games are like this. But they'll look at ways of what gives you that dopamine rush that makes you come back to the game again and again and again. And there's a lot of psychology behind it. Think about certain games where they have storefronts and you think, okay, well I can see all the things that are for sale. And the psychology behind a lot of changing that is I'm only going to show you items that I think you're going to buy. And not only will I show you items that I think you can buy, I'm going to jack up the price by 150%. Or I'm only going to show you items for 24 hours, because if you don't buy it in 24 hours, it's gone forever, you'll never ever see it again. And so you're driving a lot of those sort of FOMO-like reactions of like, oh, I really need to buy that now, because if I don't, I will miss out. So a lot of psychology behind it. Technical, when you think about technical, it's things like, it tends to be mixing of things. So you can be a programmer and an artist. And what they do is they look at, okay, the world as I see it has a lot of lights, has a lot of materials of how light interacts with surfaces and things like that. What makes things look metallic? What makes things look like plaster and so on, right? So technical people are sort of the bridging the gaps between art and programming. One of our sound designers that we work with is highly technical. And so he understands properties of like, okay, you know, this sound is over there and there's a concrete wall blocking the way, so I need to make sure to dampen it, I need to muffle the sound a little bit, and all of these kinds of properties, and it makes the games better. Then we have writing, which is story-based games have a lot of this stuff. So, all right, what do I see in the future? There's a couple of minutes left. So generative AI is going to be a really big thing, and a lot of people are scared because they're like, oh, it's going to replace our jobs. And you know, I find it really funny that AI is doing the things that we really want to do. You know, as humans, we really want to do creative writing, we want to do creative art, you know, making art, yet we're slaving away doing other stuff, and AI is doing all the fun stuff. But generative AI is going to be great for tools. So we finally get to do the, you know, I've only got a tiny photo, zoom out, I want to see what else it might possibly be in existence. Or I might want to be like, I need to create a story, so let's just get ChatGPT to write something cool for me. Immersive technology is going to be a big thing. So while we're sort of starting to get to it with things like VR and XR and Apple Vision and stuff like that, they will only get better and better over time. I mean, when I was starting game development, VR didn't even exist. Production accessibility. So tools are becoming easier and easier, and they're also becoming cheaper. So when you think about things like Photoshop, it's a subscription now. It used to cost a couple grand to get it. Money. So the future of money is going to change. We've already started to see a little bit of that with Bitcoin and things like that, but the kind of acceptance of people talking about Bitcoin, people know what that is now. Whereas when, unfortunately, I was not one of the people dabbling with it 10 years ago, but if I was, you know, talking to anybody about Bitcoin, they'd be, what is that? And remote working, that's only going to get better with time. Eventually, with the combination with immersive technology and accessibility and all these different things, it's going to make it easier and easier to work remotely, but it's also going to start crossing those problems that we have with remote working. People not understanding, being able to tell through body cues, like, you know, you're on a Zoom call and you only see the top half of the person, or maybe you don't see the person at all. But we're going to figure out ways to actually solve a lot of those problems. So that's what I see coming up in the future. I think it's going to be super exciting. And I think that's all the time I have. So thank you so much for listening to me. And everybody have a great night.
Awesome, thank you, James. One of the things I should have said earlier is that we do have a time for Q&A. But that'll be a little bit later. But thanks again, James. It's a really immersive snapshot of 25 years experience of a range of opportunities, potential issues, and skills within the game industry. Our next speaker is Ian Sweeney. Ian is the creative director, is a writer, filmmaker, started a company in 2018 called Vision Thing, is working as a consultant for a number of brands, Tip Top in New Zealand, Black Ferns, it was awesome, as well as doing music videos and a whole bunch of different things. So I'm going to hand things over to Ian to talk about the other sides of the digital screen. Kia ora, everyone. There you go, you get to see it all in preview in reverse. Right. Oh, sorry. That's okay.
The end. No. Can I ask for a volunteer to put a timer on for me? Anyone in the front row? Can you put 20 minutes on? And when it gets to 20 minutes, can you moo like a cow? And then I'll know to... Thanks. Right, okay, so I'm going to talk about writing. The brief for tonight was pretty open, so I've decided that the brief was to inspire you all to become writers and hopefully tell you a little bit about the industry. So that's me. I'm a writer and director. That's William Shakespeare and Steven Spielberg. I sit somewhere in the middle. I do advertising. Probably the bulk of my work is writing and directing commercials. I've written a lot of the Air New Zealand safety videos. I love doing music videos as well, and I'll show you one later. And I do a bunch of other stuff as well. So more corporate things, like brand websites and labels for meat, apparently. So why did I become a writer? So this is not a picture of me back in 1923, but it's pretty much what I was doing in the 80s, which is all I wanted to do really was play with my Star Wars toys, and that impulse has never really left me, to be honest. So I wanted to tell stories, and so I went to a college called the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama in London, and I knew that a lot of famous people had been there, so I thought I'd bump into famous people. I didn't. They all either graduated before or after me. So I studied set design and puppetry. For some reason I studied puppetry, I'm not quite sure how, and then from puppetry I somehow ended up in advertising. But what do writers do? A writer writes, yes, but. I think the biggest realization for me when I started writing is that the writer really gives birth to the ideas. So it's very rare that someone says to you, I've got this great idea, I want you to go away and write it. It usually doesn't happen like that. Usually the writer is the one who goes, how about we do this? And I think a good definition is a writer uses words, ideas and stories to get the audience's attention. And I think, I'm probably a little bit biased because a lot of my work's in advertising where it's all about getting people's attention, but I think it's the same thing, whether you're writing a movie or a game or a book, you're competing for people's attention all the time. This was me asking Midjourney, we talked about generative AI, to generate an image of someone who was watching TV, playing on a VR headset and tweeting all at the same time. And this is kind of what the world looks like, I think, at the moment. And as a writer, or as any kind of, I suppose, anyone who's telling stories, you've got to be the one who's thinking, how are we going to make sure that people engage with our story and not another one? Because you're competing really, I mean, all these people, all these brands, whether you're YouTube or Marvel or Netflix or Fortnite or Super Mario or the Barbie movie, or Air New Zealand or the New World with their advertising, you're always competing for people's attention, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and that means that the writer needs to be really good. It means your idea for a story, game, film, book, commercial has to be insanely great. So really the idea is of prime importance. So the pitch is everything. And one thing you get really good at when you're a writer is learning how to sum up your idea, sum up your story in as few words as possible. You're all familiar with the concept of the elevator pitch. You walk into an elevator, the doors close, and you've got until you reach the 5th floor to tell the other person in the lift why they should, either buy your movie idea or invest in your game or etc. So that's really important, and I think it's becoming more important for all creative people. A writer has to deal with this. So this is I think the single biggest challenge you face as a writer is the blank page, and It's incredibly scary. I can't tell you how scary it is because it's like that every single day. And most other people, I think, in the creative industries have something to work on. If you're a director, you have a script. If you're a director of photography, you've got a script and you've got, the vision of the director. But as a writer, somehow you've got to fill a blank page and you've got to make that interesting. And you've got to be okay with that, when you're a writer. And I think people don't talk about this enough. I'll dream of a blank page a lot of the time at night and what's supposed to go on there. The other big thing is, a writer writes stuff, but really, a writer rewrites things. I used to think that the first draft that's it, I've done it. And now I just see the first draft as, it's just something I go through. I don't really worry about it being good or bad anymore because I know that whether I think it's terrible or whether I think it's the best thing in the world, everyone else is going to think it's the worst thing in the world. And everyone is going to have comments. And I think the biggest example of this for me is the Air New Zealand, the Men in Black safety video. And this is one I often ask people, how many drafts of this safety video script do you think that I wrote? Shout them out or raise your hands. Anyone?
25.
25, yeah. 10. Anyone else?
15.
Okay. 110. Oh, gee, I wouldn't be standing if that was the case. It was 53. 53 drafts of the script. The first draft had William Shatner and Sigourney Weaver and an alien in it, and until we realised that we couldn't afford that. And that's because these are some of the people who had to be involved, and this is what happens again when you write anything. Everyone wants to have a look at it. So I'll just go through the list of the people who had an opinion on that script. So the Air New Zealand marketing team, the marketing director, the CEO, the safety team, so the people who make sure that the safety messages are comprehensible, the PR team, the sponsorship team, because it was the All Blacks, then the content delivery team, because they want to make sure that they can make social content out of it, the chief pilot, because he wants to make sure that if he's flying a plane, people know what to do. The All Black sponsorship team, so those are the people who make sure that the All Blacks are portrayed in the right way. The All Blacks coach, because he wants to know what he's doing. New Zealand Rugby, the Rugby Federation, they want to know what the All Blacks are doing. Sony Pictures, because they had the rights to the Men in Black movie. Sony Music, because they had the rights to the song. Will Smith's team, because he sang the song. The song producer, because the song producer also wrote the song, the head of Amblin Entertainment, who were the production company. Steven Spielberg apparently read it as well, because he was the exec producer. The CAA, so they're the body responsible for making sure that people are safe when they fly. And the focus groups, which are everyday people who get taken into a room, who are shown the safety video, and who are paid a glass of wine and $50 to tell you they didn't like it and suggest changes. Which is always a rewarding experience for a writer. But a writer's a god. And this is one of the best things about writing is you get to, if you can deal with having the blank page, you get to sit down and make this entire world out of nothing. And it's really, it's a really magical experience because time can go by really, really quickly. And you can get very, very attached to the characters. And that's why I think it's so hard to show what you've written to other people because, it's your world and you don't want people interfering with it. So, what makes a good writer? So I think being sensitive, and there's a lot of talk of highly sensitive people and how highly sensitive people find it very hard to, engage with that. I'd consider myself a highly sensitive person, and I think I've found it hard at times, but it's really, really important. You do need to feel things. You need to be a deep thinker, and it doesn't matter whether you're writing The Shawshank Redemption or you're writing John Wick Chapter 7. You still need to be thinking about characters in a deep way and connecting with people on an emotional level. I think you need to love writing. A lot of writers say, I don't like writing, but I love having written. I think if that's the case, I reckon don't do it, because you're going to have to be doing a lot of writing. I think you need to enjoy the process of writing, whether anything happens with it or not. You can't be too precious, again, because things are going to change. Your vision's going to, be butchered. You're going to have to make compromises. And I think a lot of bad writing is people who are just unwilling to part with their vision. You've got to love people because you have to work with people, even though writing can be quite solitary. If you're making things, you're going to have to work with directors and producers and designers and developers, and that's fun if you like people. It's harrowing if you don't. Not everyone likes people. And I think you need to be curious about the world. You need to be able to, project yourself into new worlds and new experiences to be able to write about them. So I think one of the things, when I at some point decided, I told my parents that I wanted to be a writer. They went, "Don't be a writer. You'll never make. Writers don't make any money. That you won't be able to survive. You'll be serving coffee for the rest of your life." And I think that's sometimes true, but it's not necessarily true. I think if you can write, you can write most things. Does anyone use my food bag here? Ever used my food bag? Yeah. So the next time you get my food bag delivery, you'll see there's these words printed on the top of the box and it says "deliciously salted," and I wrote those words. And I thank you. Yeah. And I get all these strange writing briefs all the time where clients go, "Yeah, we're doing the packaging for the back of the New Zealand Cancer Society sunscreen bottles. Could you write us a couple of lines of why people should use sunscreen?" And I go, "Yeah, okay, I'll give it a go." So if you can write, there are lots of avenues because people need words in plenty of different industries. Okay. I think the key to becoming a good writer, once you've studied here, I don't work here, so I have no vested interest in saying that. It's just a little plug. I think failure is really the key to writing. I think you need to write as much as possible and fail as much as possible. And writing something, putting it aside for 6 months, and then reading it again and realising how bad it was is the only way to really learn. And I think it happens to all writers. I think probably Shakespeare probably felt like that about some of his plays. And so this is. I'm just backing up my slide with a Winston Churchill statement. Success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. It's really, if you're in the creative field, it's easy to get beaten down by your ideas not going anywhere. But don't. All right. I think so. The cow hasn't moved, so I'm guessing that I'm good for time.
7 minutes before.
7 minutes, okay. So I'm going to show you one piece of work. And
15 if you like.
yeah, could you? We could do all the animals. All right, this is an example of where you probably wouldn't expect to see a writer's credit. This is a music video which I directed, but I also wrote essentially as a short film. The song is from a Dunedin band called Hardly Unclear. It's about, as you'll hear, they said it's a song about two people who meet in a lift. So I wrote and directed this.
Oh yes, 14.
When I got up out of bed this morning, I didn't know you yet. And I still don't know you yet. But at least I know I want to if we never meet again. Press all the buttons to sleep.
There we go. So writers can write music videos as well. So that's me playing with my toys. Thank you very much. Oh, I don't know what to say after that. Can relate. I delivered a baby in the kitchen one time. Wasn't quite so yellow. But thanks again to Ian. Just to Ian and James, it's one of the things that we notice within the New Zealand creative industries is an ethos of people who have gone through and they always keep an eye out for the next generation coming through. So for both James and Ian to give up their time for us, they're not, like Ian said, they're not at the university. So just one more time, thank you very much. I'm just going to switch gears a little bit and invite you all to come on a rock and roll adventure through university program regulations. Are you ready? Woohoo! No. Okay, so this is just to turn our attention to what we're offering here at the university. Ian and James there are pioneers in a sense, have come through different ways into industries that within New Zealand haven't had traditional educational pathways into them, so some of this stuff is relatively new. What we offer here at UC, a Bachelor of Digital Screen with honours, 6 majors and 1 minor. I'm going to turn it over to some of my colleagues in a minute to just give a little bit more explanation to each. But first, we've got a table to look at. I was a little bit self-conscious that we had too many numbers in the presentation. And just to give you a little bit of explanation here, it's a 4-year degree. There are a couple of features that we really want everyone to know about. The first feature is, okay, so this is like a game map, right? Did that work? No. So we've got 4 years of courses in order to work our way to a level of mastery within an industry that requires creativity and proficiency and skill, as well as some ideas about the world, as well as the sorts of things that James was reflecting on, where we fit in with the world. So in our first year, each of these boxes in different colours represents a course, and each of these courses are pretty much their own little pocket universe. This first year is really about being exposed to a broad set of skills. Okay, that word breadth, okay, what is it? Broad set of skills. One time with me? Broad set of skills. That's the first year. So you do a little bit of everything when you're coming in. We have delivered this program. We're halfway through our first year. The idea is to learn a little bit about a bunch of different things that fit within the screen industries. You might come in as a student thinking about, I just want to write scripts for music videos because I saw a dude and it took me to a place, or I just want to be a game designer and because this is what I've envisioned. The first year is a little bit of everything. We want you to have a broad skill set, be exposed to a number of things. So we do a product design course, which is a little bit practical, which is a little bit technical drawing, which is a little bit MacGyver-y, where you get to make things and think about processes, about making things. We do some music. You can't be in the creative industries, we can't be in the digital screen industries without the sorts of things that music conveys. We will focus on game development. We have principles of screen production, which is really understanding why the credits of any film is so long, all the different roles and duties associated with that. And we have 2D and 3D art for film and games. And even if you're like me and you are not the best at drawing, if Pack and Save has taught us anything, there's a place for sticking. Okay, so that is our first year. What's the main focus of the first year? What are we doing? It's broad. The one paper I didn't tell you is the Disc 101, which is a course that I convene or coordinate. And this is the second feature of our degree, that you'll see this pattern follow across the first, second, and third years. And Ian's just talked about this. At the heart of these industries is story. So in our first year, we focus on understanding the nature of story in our course Disc 101. We focus on storytelling at the first year, the second year, and the third year. This is scaffolding for students moving or sort of hearing about different ideas, ways stories work, the shape of stories, how we tell them what works well, and we move from, in the first year, being a bit passive and listening about them, but having opportunities to sort of, through assessment, do different sort of creative types of things. And we build on that through the years, and so that we keep on being moving from passive to becoming a bit more active. So that's the second feature. What is it? It's storytelling. What is it? Storytelling. Storytelling. Awesome. Also, through our courses, we've got a focus on the practical elements. So in a little bit, we'll talk about what's happening with our campus over there. I'm just pointing over there like you all know what I'm talking about. We've got a campus devoted to this sort of thing. It's I'm going to let somebody else explain a little bit about it, but we will be having commercial companies operating out of there. So there are different ways that we will be building on our active skills, and that's going to be through projects. So the third feature is projects. What's the third bit? Projects. So we're going to be doing some practical work through the second, third, and fourth years as well. A little bit to a little bit more. It's going to look different for different students depending on what it is that you begin to major in. So first year broad, second part storytelling, third bit we've got you're going to have the opportunity to work on practical projects. We have 6 majors and 1 minor. The minor I'll talk to is Indigenous narrative. So we're in Aotearoa, we're in New Zealand. This is the only place where you can, well, not the only place because stories travel, but this is the place where Māori stories come from. So part of what we have here is Māori Pacifica stories, how we tell our stories, how we use our stories to empower ourselves, to educate. And the idea is really to bring Māori and Pacifica through, to tell our own stories. So it's part of the mahi, part of the work that I do. It's a complement to any of the majors, so that you can still be develop your skill sets, but with an eye on ngā kōrero, ngā tukuiho, ngā kōrero, ngā tupuna, I should say, ngā kōrero tukuiho, our stories. I'm going to hand things over to Oana, who's going to talk to us a little bit about animation.
Kia ora everybody, who's excited so far? Woo, yeah. Who is here to do animation? Hands up. Who is here to do game arts? Hands up. Who is not entirely sure what they're here for, but they're enthusiastic anyway? Yeah, awesome. And that's the really cool thing about this degree. I think it's a chance for those of you that aren't possibly very sure to have that first foundation year and really try all of the different things before you have to decide what you're sure about. But I'm going to talk a little bit about animation. Animation, at its very core, is the art of making things that you make move. But before you can make the move, you need to make them. Everyone with me so far? So it's not just the art of animating things, but it's also the art of the entire animation pipeline. So we cover storyboarding, we cover 2D art, 2D animation, we cover modeling, we cover texturing, rendering, all the way through to production. So anything that you need to make animation both in 2D or in 3D or in some sort of unintelligible new 7D thing that we don't know about yet, we'll work on that as well. Stop motion, all of those things. We're not here to tell you what medium to animate in or what to do. What we're here to do is to empower you guys to have the skills to create the art and the animation that goes into this industry. We'd like you to explore a variety of styles. So what did Hamu say at the beginning? The first year is? Broad. Awesome. So some of you guys will end up at Pixar animating the next feature film. Some of you guys will end up at Fulton Hogan making training videos, and that actually probably pays better, let's be honest. So what's really important is that you guys can do whatever you want, and we want to empower you guys to get into whichever part of it that you want to get into and have the skills that you need to succeed in, whatever that looks like. So visual storytelling, the entire process, collaborating with other students, but it also ties into this thing here. So this is game arts. And game arts and animation kind of go hand in hand, and that's kind of, I guess, why I'm talking about them together. And it's also why in the first year, our foundation course for these two majors is 2D and 3D art in games and film. That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Yeah, try teaching it. So what we're trying to do is, whether you're here to be a screenwriter, whether you're here to be a director, whether you're here for any of those reasons, whatever they are, we want you to understand enough of that broad idea of design, that broad idea about art, that broad idea about animation and games, so that you can bring all of those things together into whatever your chosen career is. So you have the opportunity to get super specialized in game arts and animation and any of those things, learn 2D games, 3D games, the workflows for both, the convergence of those spaces where games and films are starting to merge together. Who's seen The Mandalorian? Yeah, half games, half films, right? So they use techniques like virtual production to create the backgrounds for those things. So the distinction between people that are working in games, people that are working in film, people that are working in animation, those do shift. And we don't know what the industry is going to look like in 5 years when you guys graduate, but we want to make sure that you're as ready as we can for it. So that's a little bit about game arts. It's a little bit about animation. If you have any more questions, I will be happy to answer them later, but I'm going to pass over to my colleague John, who will talk about cinematic arts.
Kia ora, John Christophel, Stakoingo. Pleased to be here. I'm talking to you about cinematic arts. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself because that'll explain. About 38 years ago, I started to make films. Back then, I would have been working in film, 16mm is where I started. I then went on to videotape, then went on to use digital tape, and now we're fully digital on cards and things like that. So this is something I want you to think about, is that the things are always moving into the future, always changing. And what I hope that I can bring as a filmmaker, so there's about 38 years of filmmaking, but I have for the last 20 years been teaching film at School of Fine Arts. And in that time too, I've seen a lot of these changes through the industry and where things are going. And what's key to me, and this goes to our structure of what we're teaching here, is that a lot of things there's a good footing to go forward, and I think Ohana said just before, we don't know what's going to be around in 5 years' time or 2 years' time. Through yourself with your computer or your cell phone, after 2 years, do you know what the next one's going to look like or what it's going to be like? But what we can teach is a methodology around lighting, around working with crews, about a good ethic, a good sound way. Again, we're making films in Aotearoa. We're not making films in Hollywood or in Britain or Europe. So we have a very unique country where we work in. We want to really, and I think it comes down to our writing and everything we do. If we're going to make unique, interesting films, we need to understand the country we're in and the people that we are part of. And I think it's a very important part. So it's really, the first year courses are really about getting that right footing, getting us sorted, and then into working into the technical side of things. Anyway, that's from my point of view. Another story I want to tell is that when I was a student here, the first job I got when I left art school, I got to drive the Portaloo around on a television production. It was a TV3 production. Letter to Blanche, if anyone remembers that. Anyway, I was driving the Portaloo around, and after a week, one of the boom operators, the guy doing the sound, put his back out, and the first AD said, "Does anyone know how to use a boom?" You know, so no more Portaloo was on the boom. I was on the set. I then suddenly after that the boom operator came back, but the second camera assistant who had the clapperboard was saying had enough and left. So, can you do that? Yep. So I did that, and it'll lead us to say in about 3 or 4 weeks I was second camera on a 2-camera shoot, and that's sort of what I. That's that idea of being can-do, being able to put your hand up, knowing this broad idea of lots of different little skills on a film set, and knowing how to work with a crew and be part of a team, that somebody, a first AD in a set goes, this is a person that can be on set and is really handy, he's always helping shift all the gear and he's grabbing coffees for people and things like that. This is all part of this first year principles of screen film production, is that this is all part of this ethics of doing things right, doing it a good New Zealand way, and being someone useful on set, and learning all these little skills, and not being someone who stands back and shrugs and hands in their pockets looking. We want people who are really keen to be part of a very vibrant and fun industry. And from this first year, it only gets better. Then the access to digital equipment, and you see this sort of this picture behind me here. I can name about 3 of the people in that picture that are students of mine in the last 5 years, and they're all sort of working as freelance camera operators, transferring digital footage. There's a grip guy there, Zach, who's got a small business. There's a sound guy. You just see half of him there. Tim Brott. He's been working sound for about 20 years. Half that time in London, and most of the time doing what do you call it? One of those Treasure Island kind of things. Anyway, he's doing a lot of that work. So anyway, we've got a lot of. So this is the. When you've got that can-do attitude, that's where you can become, where you can go. Anyway, I'll leave it like that for now. Probably still got a bit of time, but I just got to sort of brother Ruben, introduce Ruben, because I've just started to talk about sound. So.
Thanks, John. I guess it's kind of a cliche to say that we live in a visual culture and everybody's focused on images all the time and we ignore sound. I think there's some truth in it, though. We are, after all, talking about a Bachelor of Digital Screen, not a Bachelor of Digital Loudspeakers or something like that, which doesn't sound very good, so that's probably why we didn't do that, right? But I think part of the thing that I'm really interested in doing in this degree is to reawaken a sense of how important sound is in a digital screen experience and in our daily lives as well. It's something that kind of ticks away in the background, but it's easy to forget how much information we get about the world around us from sound, from things as basic as the reflections from surfaces. If you're standing in a room and you close your eyes, you can really tell what the surfaces are made of, if there's carpet on the floor, if it's a hard surface on the walls, where people are standing. Incredible amount of information that you get. So in our first year course, which incidentally is called MUSA 126, it's Sound Technologies, we've given it a revamp. We've run the course for the first time this year in the first part of the digital screen, tweaked a few things, tightened it up, made it a little better, tilted it a little bit more towards sound for screen, so it's a little bit more relevant to the degree. And part of what we're really trying to do in this course is to awaken and sort of deepen your awareness and understanding of how sound contributes to a digital screen experience, how it can serve the narrative in lots and lots of different ways, from the tiniest details like the kind of footstep sound that you choose or the kind of reverberation that you put on it. How can that help to make a stronger story or a more interesting character? And that translates into kind of 4 aspects of sound and that we look at in the course. So there are practical skills that you learn, there are theoretical skills, there's communication, which is a really, really important thing to do any aspect of creative industries. You really need to be able to talk to other people. You need to understand what they do and communicate really efficiently to work well as part of a team. And then there's listening, of course. You need to learn how to listen critically. And critical listening kind of means the ability to, I guess, hear from a very global perspective, from a very zoomed out perspective, but also to be able to zoom in on little details and tweak things when you need to. Listen in a very detailed way. So the sorts of practical skills that you're learning are things like learning all about microphones. One of the most interesting things about microphones is how they're different from ears, just like cameras are. You know, you pick up your cell phone, you take a picture of something, it looks totally different to what you see with your eyes. Same thing with microphones. They don't function like ears, totally different. They can hear lots of things that ears don't hear, but our ears and our brains can do things that microphones cannot do. So you need to learn all about that. Also things about how to use sound editing software, how to spot sound to picture, that sort of stuff, really basic things. Theoretical concepts like digital audio. How does digital audio work? How do you take sort of vibrating air molecules in the sort of atmosphere around us, transfer into a format that you can store and access anytime. Some basic psychoacoustics and acoustic stuff, how your ear functions, how waves propagate and bounce off things. And then finally, communication. All of these things really feed into the communication aspect of things, because along the way, while you're acquiring these skills and this knowledge, you're learning terminology and concepts that help you to understand what everybody else is doing in a creative team and to be able to talk with them. So that's basically what the Sound Technologies course is all about. Later on in the degree, I think there's a couple of really special things about the sound major that you can look forward to. One is there's a course that I think is unique in the degree, which is a collaborative project which begins in the second year. There's one at 200 level and one at 300 level, and that's where you as the sound person get to work as part of a team on developing a game or making a short movie or some other kind of screen project. And you're going to be very, very popular because everybody needs sound, and they don't realize how badly they need good sound until they need it, and then they really, really need it, and they need it in a hurry. So if you want to have lots and lots of friends at university and beyond, you should take the sound major. The other thing that you have to look forward to is we have some wonderful facilities that I think Kevin is going to talk about a little bit more. But as part of that, there are some very exciting developments in sound at the moment, in spatial audio, with some formats like Dolby Atmos, which are becoming really, really popular. And we'll have a number of rooms where you'll be able to mix and do sound design in a format called 7.1.4, which is where you probably know what 7.1 is. You have 7 speakers around you, and then the .1 is a subwoofer where you get all the kind of low frequency rumbly sounds. So 7.1.4 is where you have that, but you also have 4 speakers on top of you. So you can actually mix in 3 dimensions. You can make sounds fly all over the place. And I spent part of my sabbatical last year when I was abroad working in a studio like that, and it's incredibly fun, really, really fun. You can just lose yourself for hours. So I think that's about all I've got to say. If you'd like to learn more about the sound major, please come and make yourself known at the end of the talk. We'd love to meet you. And I'll hand over to Kevin. Thanks.
Kia ora koutou. Pleasure to see you all. Welcome. I'm the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Arts, and I'm going to talk to you a bit about the vision behind the degree. We've talked about the structure, what it looks like, what you do across the years, but I'm going to talk a bit about the vision behind that, why it looks like this. And as I talk about that, I'm going to take you through the mapping of the degree to the spaces that you'll end up in as the years progress. What was the first word which underlies the degree? Very good. That was ages ago. Well done. So the degree is designed to be broad. The first year is designed to give you, as Hamu said, experiences of things you might not have anticipated. And I said that with my kind of doom voice, because people arrive and they say, but as Hamu said, I want to be a writer, or I want to be the sound people. And we say, well, first of all, we want you to get out your ruler and draw a little technical diagram of a thing, and then change its perspective and draw it again. And they go, no, this is not what I signed up for. I'm a writer or I'm a sound person. And we say, trust us. We say trust us because writing is not just writing. Understanding sound is not just understanding sound. Understanding the story needs you to understand a whole load of stuff that you might not actually be that experienced in. Every industry person that we've spoken to, and we've spoken to a lot as we design the degree, every industry person said, you can't just do one thing. You have to do a broad sample of things. This is not the Bachelor of Screenwriting. It is not the Bachelor of Animation. It is not the Bachelor of Loudspeaker either. It's the Bachelor of Digital Screen. And the reason is the digital screen industries are huge, vast, complicated, and intertwined. You need to know a bit of everything. You don't need to be a specialist in everything, because you can't be, right? But you need to have enough of a background, enough of a taster, to be able to go and have a conversation with the sound person, if you're a writer. And the sound person has to go to be able to talk to the coder, the game developer, right? You've got to know a bit about where they are. So, that's why we make you do all these red boxes in the first year. It's a bit like it's the kind of broccoli principle is what we call it, right? You do these courses because they're good for you. You might not like the look of it or like the idea of it, but when you get to year 2 and year 3 and year 4, you'll think, that broccoli was actually pretty useful. And that's why we make you do it. So, if you come, I want you to remember the broccoli, okay? Now, the majors really start in the second year. So you do the broccoli thing, right? And then you go into your second year, and you end up with the filmmakers, and you end up with the sound people, and you end up with the game artists, the animators, the game developers. And it's here where the specific content happens. Now, of course, throughout the years, as we've mentioned, you get these required courses in storytelling. Storytelling is king, right? Storytelling is the underlying principle of the whole thing. I should have asked you that question to see if you remembered, but I hope you did. Now, because of the broccoli year, I'm going to stop saying that in case it sticks, and you start to actually call it the broccoli year. Don't. Because of this really good vision that we have, and this idea to make you all experience lots of things, you are in these classes in the first year with lots of students from other programs. You're with product design students, you're with music students, you're with students doing the BA, the BSc, other degrees too. The classes are big, lecture rooms like this, filled with digital screen students and other students. Because of that, because it's a mixture, because we're getting you to interact with these people with other interests and expertise, the first year is largely taught in rooms like this, on this part of the university, on the island campus. Another feature, just while I'm talking about that, is that you'll see these elective slots here. Now, weirdly, my favourite part of this degree has got nothing to do with digital screen at all. My favourite part of this degree is that you can add a whole bunch of electives to it, and you can add minors to it in qualifications that are not digital screen areas. So, you could do a major in cinematic arts and a minor in, I don't know, biology, if you want to, from science. Or you could do cinematic arts and you could do a subject from the Bachelor of Commerce. You do accounting. Or you could stick a foreign language in there. You could do Japanese, Spanish, Chinese. If you're wondering what to do, my advice would be stick a language in there. Why? Because hardly anybody can speak a language other than English. If you come from a country where English is the first language, it's really hard to persuade people that speaking another language is a good idea. And as a result, hardly anybody does it. But if you can, then you send your CV in, and your CV's in a pile like this, it instantly is plucked out into a pile like this. Right? Anyway, I said I was from the Faculty of Arts, right? That's what these elective slots are for. And also because of that, you're kind of across the whole university. This is a university degree. It's not something which is only in the digital screen area, and it's not something which is only in the digital screen spaces. Right? You're at the University of Canterbury. Now, as you begin to specialize in your major, you begin to use more and more specialized spaces. When you're eating your when you're doing the broad first year, we don't let you come in and we don't give you a $100,000 camera to go mess around with. I'm sorry about that. It's just a fact. Okay? First of all, we have to train you in how to do some things. And that's what part of that first year is for. Now, as you get to use the more specialized spaces, we use more and more of the rooms in a building called Otakaro, which is over on the other side of Island Fields. This begins fully, really, in your second year because that's when the majors start. Now, in Otakaro, there are high-spec computer labs, both PC and Macs. There are edit suites as well. There are flexible design teaching spaces to get your kind of creative juices flowing. And that's where most of the courses in the second year will be taught. As well as that, there's a building called Jack Mann. Jack Mann has some really quite large rooms in it, which are sound stages. That's where you'll do the second year film courses. You won't use that in the first year, because remember, we've got to teach you some stuff first before we let you use the specialized spaces. Also in Jack Mann, there'll be an auditorium. It's designed as a screening room and also a space for sound recording. That kind of space you'll use mainly from the second semester of your second year, because that's when the projects start. You'll go into using that space in an introductory way in year 2, but then as the complexity and size of the project increase over time, you'll be in that space more and more. A building that we are calling Waidaki is focused on sound. So there's smaller and larger recording spaces in this building. There's also things like a space for dialogue recording, and there's a teaching Foley stage too. I'm really excited about the Foley stage because I want to mess around with making sound. That, again, will come into its own in year 2, and you will use it more and more as the projects grow in size and scope, until the 4th year, when you'll notice this red color changes again. And the idea is that in the 4th year, like the first year, students come back together again into a team. You're together in the first year, you break up into your majors in the second and third year. In the 4th year, you become a team. Teams are designed around the projects that you spend a whole year doing. So you might get together your writer and your game arts person and your game developer and a sound person, and you'll make a thing. That thing will have advice from industry. You will pitch to and be pitched by representatives from local and regional industries. They will provide input to you to make sure that the directions that you're going in are good, and also to give you the kind of critical feedback that our speakers tonight have been talking about. Sometimes you'll get told that that's not very good. But you know what? That's good advice. Being told that is part of the process. It's how it becomes better. Along the way, of course, in the second and third year projects, which are in the second semester of each of year 2 and year 3, you'll also produce smaller projects, smaller little creative outputs. And with years 2, 3, and 4 combined, you'll build up really quite an impressive list of credits, so that by the end, you'll be able to construct a short play reel to show people the kind of thing you can do. I've got some photos here of the spaces as they are developing right now. This is the The foyer space of Otakaro, you'd spend a lot of time here from your second year of the degree. That's a shot from the window on a sunny day. Just in case you get too excited, it doesn't look quite as nice when it's raining, but it looks nice in the sun. Here are the computer labs. They're quite highly spec'd. There'll be teaching in here, but also they'll be available for students from the second year to go do their own project work and that kind of thing too. Similarly for the Mac labs, and these are the creative teaching spaces. These are designed really to be as flexible as we can make them. So to get your creative ideas flowing, you know, you've not only got to be taught some stuff, but you've also got to have the spaces which allow you to go in your little teams, figure out some things, get some ideas going, and then build up those ideas through your classes. So that's what the spaces are designed to do. I think I'll stop.
All right. Well, that is us for the evening. Just wanted to say one more time, thank you to our guest speakers, James and Ian. Just a mihi to our organisers, Jackie, for putting this all together. We are going to hang around for a little bit if you have any questions and when we missed you. Jackie, there is one more slide. I was going to say, I'm sure there's a follow-up slide. If you are interested, if you have questions, if you pop up at any time, there are different ways to see what we're up to. Via Instagram, Facebook, using the UC Digital Screen, or get in touch with us via this email. We're always around. So thank you all for coming out tonight. And that's us. Cool.